Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. So you, the learner, wanted to get into sourdough,
Mm,
specifically creating and keeping your own starter going.
right.
You shared a pretty detailed guide. And basically, our mission here is to pull out the really key stuff so you can get started without feeling, overwhelmed.
Exactly. Yeah. Sourdough, it's a fascinating mix of like science and tradition. And making a starter, it really connects you to this living thing. It's super rewarding.
Yeah.
We'll just focus on what you actually need to know. Keep it clear.
Perfect.
Okay.
So let's jump right in. Creating the starter.
Yeah.
It sounds simple, just flour and water, but there are nuances, right? Where do we begin?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Basics. Flour and water, that's it. But the interesting part is the type of flour you use right at the beginning.
Oh,
For the first couple of days, using a whole wheat or maybe pumpernickel flour,
yeah.
it's like setting out a feast for the microbes.
Okay.
They've got more nutrients, the bran, the germ. It really fuels those wild yeasts and bacteria you want, helps get things going strong.
Gotcha. So it's not just filler. It's actually like targeted food to start. And the water. Anything special there?
Usually your tap water is perfectly fine. The main thing to watch out for is heavy chlorination.
Right.
Chlorine isn't great for those little microbes we're trying to encourage. So if your water smells strongly of chlorine, maybe use bottled water or just let your tap water sit out for, say, 24 hours. That usually does the trick.
Okay. Let it air out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe avoid distilled or reverse osmosis water at first. They lack minerals that can actually help.
Interesting. Okay. Specific flour to kickstart. Watch the chlorine.
Mm.
What about gear? What equipment do we absolutely need?
You don't need much. A glass jar is great, at least a quart size, so you can actually see what's happening inside. That's really helpful. And
Hmm.
then just a loose cover, like a tea towel held with a rubber band, or even just plastic wrap laid on top, needs to let gas escape.
Hmm.
And definitely a kitchen scale.
Scale for accuracy.
Yeah, for accuracy. Measuring by weight is much more consistent than volume, especially with flour. Oh, and a spatula or spoon for mixing. That's about it.
Okay. Pretty simple. Glass jar, loose cover, scale.
Yeah.
Got it. So let's walk through the day by day. We're kind of following the King Arthur method as a guide here.
Yeah, it's a solid method. So day one, super simple. You combine a scant cup, that's about 113 grams of your whole wheat or pumpernickel flour, with half a cup, also 113 grams of cool water.
Equal weights.
Equal weights, exactly. Stir it up well, cover it loosely, and just let it sit somewhere relatively warm, like around 70 Fahrenheit, for a full 24 hours.
Easy enough. Day one is just mix and wait. Day
Ah,
two, probably not much happening yet.
probably not, no. And here's where a key step comes in. You discard about half of that mixture.
Discard already.
Yep, sounds weird, I know.
Yeah.
But you discard half. Then you add another scant cup, 113 grams, but this time of all-purpose flour. Unbleached is good if you have it.
Okay, switching flours.
Right. And add half a cup, 113 grams, of water. Cool water if your house is warm, maybe slightly lukewarm if it's cool. Mix it all up again, cover, and wait another 24 hours.
All right, so discarding,
Mm-hmm.
that's to manage the amount, but also give the yeast fresh food. Yeah. Keep it
But
from getting sluggish.
exactly that. You're refreshing its environment, managing volume, and controlling the acidity. Crucial step.
Okay. Day three. Are we going to see signs of life now? Hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah, day three is often when you start seeing some action. Look for bubbles, maybe a smell that's a bit fruity, perhaps some rising.
Ooh, exciting.
And now you switch gears. You start feeding twice a day, so about every 12 hours.
Joyce, okay.
Each feeding is the same. Keep 113 grams of your starter, weigh it, discard the rest. Then add 113 grams of all-purpose flour and 113 grams of water. Mix, cover, rest.
Got it. 1.1.1 ratio by weight feeding every 12 hours.
That's the rhythm.
So days 4 and 5 are just more of that.
Yes.
Repeating the 12-hour feeding schedule.
Precisely. Consistency is really your friend here. Just keep that rhythm going.
And how do we know when it's, ready? When is the starter actually active and usable?
Good question. You're looking for predictability. By day 5, maybe day 6 or 7, sometimes longer, you want to see it reliably doubling in volume within, say, 1 to 4 hours after you feed it.
Doubling in just a few hours. Wow.
Yeah, it should look really bubbly. Maybe even have like little rivulets where bubbles have traveled up the side of the jar. And the smell should be pleasant, tangy, yeasty, maybe a bit sour, but nice.
Okay.
If it's not doing that doubling thing consistently yet, just keep feeding it every 12 hours. Patience. That consistent rise is the main sign it's strong and ready.
So it's less about the day and more about observing those signs.
Yeah.
Consistent doubling is key.
Yeah.
How long does this whole creation phase usually take? Ballpark.
Usually about a week. But it can definitely take longer. Depends on your flour, your water, the temperature in your kitchen. Lots of factors. Don't get discouraged if it seems slow. And watch out for a false rise around day 2 or 3. Sometimes bacteria create a burst of activity before the yeast really takes hold. So yeah, patience is essential.
Patience. Noted. Okay, so we've got this bubbly, active starter. Now what? How do we keep it alive and happy long term?
Right. Maintenance. It depends mostly on how often you plan to bake.
Okay.
If you bake infrequently, maybe once a week or less, the fridge is your friend. Store it in there, feed it about once a week.
And if I bake more often?
Then keep it on the counter at room temperature, but you'll need to feed it more often, usually daily or even twice daily if it's very active or warm. Keep the feeding times consistent if you can.
And the feeding itself, still that 1.1.1 ratio, discarding first.
Usually, yes. Discard about half, then feed 1 part starter, 1 part flour, 1 part water, all by weight. That's your standard 100% hydration starter. You can adjust ratios like 1.2.2 or 1.3.3 if you want to slow down fermentation a bit, especially if storing at room temp for longer between uses.
Okay, so you can tweak it. Storage is countertop for ready to use, fridge for less upkeep. Always a loose lid, right?
Always loose. Gotta let those fermentation gases escape.
Makes sense. And remind us, what are those key signs of a really thriving, happy starter we should look for?
It should reliably double within maybe 4 to 8 hours after feeding at room temp. It'll be full of bubbles, top to bottom, spongy texture, and that smell pleasantly sour, tangy, yeasty, maybe a bit fruity. Good smell.
Right. Bubbles, doubling, good smell. What if things go wrong? Like, what if my starter just seems lazy, sluggish?
Yeah, happens. First, check warmth. Is it warm enough? Around 74, 76 degrees Aramuth is often a sweet spot. Try giving it a boost with a bit of whole grain flour like rye or whole wheat. Make sure your feeding ratio is right. Check your water isn't chlorinated. Sometimes, especially with new starters, it just needs more time and consistent feeding.
Okay. What about weird smells?
Smells tell you a lot. If it smells like acetone, like nail polish remover, it's probably hungry. Feed it more, maybe more often.
Okay, hungry.
If it's super vinegary, really sharply sour, it might be over-fermenting between feedings. Try feeding more often or adjusting the ratio to give it more food relative to the starter amount. Right. Now, if it smells genuinely foul, like rotten, that's usually bad news. Undesirable bacteria might have taken over. Best bet there is usually to discard and start fresh.
Ugh, okay. Start over for foul smells. What about mold? Fuzzy spots.
Mold, yeah. Fuzzy spots can be white, green, black, pink. Unfortunately, mold usually means you have to toss it and start again. Mold can have roots you can't see.
Safety first.
Exactly. Best prevention is clean jars and utensils, regular feeding, making sure it has airflow with that loose lid, and using unbleached flour can sometimes help too. Don't confuse mold with hooch, though.
Hooch.
Yeah, sometimes a clearish or dark liquid forms on top. That's hooch, just alcohol and acids, means it's hungry. Just stir it in or pour it off before feeding. Not harmful, like mold. Or calm yeast, which is a whitish film, looks kind of wrinkly, also generally harmless. Just scrape it off and feed.
Good distinctions. Hooch. Okay, mold bad. Last thing. Consistency. What should it feel like?
If you're doing that 1.1.1 ratio, 100% hydration, it should be like a thick pancake batter. Maybe like warm peanut butter. Thick but stirrable. If it seems way too thick, add a tiny bit more water. Too thin, a tiny bit more flour. Whole grain flours tend to absorb more water, so you might notice it's thicker if you use those.
Perfect. This has been super helpful, really breaks it down. So the big takeaways are, it's about a week-long process, maybe longer, nurturing those wild microbes. Consistency in feeding is key. Starting with whole grains helps. Discarding is essential, not optional. And learn to read the signs, the doubling, the bubbles, the smell, to know it's healthy and ready, and how to troubleshoot.
You got it. That's the core of it. And, you know, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. The simple mix of flour and water, harnessing these invisible natural forces,
Yeah.
kind of makes you wonder about other traditional food ways, doesn't it? All the other things that rely on similar natural fermentation processes all around us.
That is a really cool thought to chew on, the learner. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive into sourdough starters with us.